3, 2, 1.
You ready?
You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Real Pineapple. This is your humble host, Hunter here. Just real quick summary here. Apologize for last couple weeks the recordings being, inconsistent between celebrating my lovely anniversary with my partner and getting my booster shot. Been a little busy. The booster kind of kicked my ass, so it was a little rough getting back, but I'm good. Moving forward, I should be back on a couple reviews a week schedule, if not more, and I'll kind of talk about that. I'll go and talk about that here at the end of recording, but I've got a review here for Red Notice, which of course is directed and written by Rawson Marshall Thurber, who... that may not be a familiar name to you, but he's actually done two of my favorite comedies in the last 20 years in Dodgeball, a true underdog story back in 2004. I fucking love that movie. I think that's actually Vince Vaughn's probably best comedic role is Dodgeball. And then he goes ahead and does We're the Millers in 2013 with Aniston, Emma Roberts. I am blanking on the dude's name. He was in Detroit. He's going to be Adam Warlock. I should fucking know this. Will Poulter. There we go. And of course, Jason Sudeikis. So those movies are great. Dodgeball and We're the Millers are awesome. But then he does Central Intelligence. And while I fully admit I am not a fan of Kevin Hart, I just don't think that's a funny movie. And then he does Skyscraper with The Rock. He was the director and screenwriter on Central Intelligence and the director, producer, and screenwriter on Skyscraper. So, all that to say, going into this, I went, wow, we get Dwayne Johnson, the biggest and highest paid movie star in the world right now. We get Ryan Reynolds, fucking Deadpool himself. We get Gal Gadot, we get one. So, the fact is, I'm sure this movie was pitched exactly like that. Hey, I can get Black Adam, Wonder Woman, and Deadpool all in one movie to launch an action franchise. What do you think? And I'm sure Netflix went, fuck yeah, that sounds wonderful. We like money. But this is the biggest budgeted film that Netflix has put out. I want to say it's over 200. Oh, it's exactly $200 million for this fucking film, which is insane. Like, what? $200 million to do this movie. The budget on Black Panther, I think, was $175, if memory serves. Oh no, Black Panther's budget was $200 million, pardon me. So, the same budget as fucking Black Panther. Wait, what? And let's call this what it is. As I'm sitting there watching this movie, because I watched this earlier with my partner, I gotta say, y'all, this is a bad version of The Rundown. This is what I thought Jungle Cruise was gonna be. And I bring up Jungle Cruise very intentionally because I remember going into Jungle Cruise with really low expectations, like really low expectations. And go figure, I actually enjoyed Jungle Cruise quite a bit. I thought Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt, their back and forth, I thought was incredibly charming, and it really felt like they actually had some chemistry at points. Not consistently, but there are points where I just went, God damn, they really are clicking. And you have Jesse Plemons as a great villain, of course, in there. This movie has neither of those things. This doesn't have a memorable villain. This doesn't have memorable characters. This is just kind of a slog to get through in general. And the one person I will say in this cast that I feel bad for is Ritu Arya, who you know as Lila from Umbrella Academy Season 2. She's fucking awesome. I feel bad for her in the aspect of, I'm sure her agent got her this role and she heard, oh my god, I'm going to be in the next Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot vehicle. I'm sure she did cartwheels in her place and was like, holy shit, this is going to be a launching pad for me. And to be quite frank, the movie does nothing with her. I can't even judge her performance because it's nothing. She's supposed to be this Interpol agent. So, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, Dwayne Johnson, he plays John Hartley. He is a guy who works for the FBI, if memory serves. Doesn't really matter, but he's a behavioral analysis. He's a member of the behavioral analysis unit. Special Agent John Hartley. And he's brought in to go ahead and hunt down Ryan Reynolds and Nolan Booth. Nolan Booth is a very notorious art thief, the number 2 art thief in all of the world. And so I will say there's this opening sequence of there's this whole thing where they're talking about these eggs that Cleopatra was given as a gift. Doesn't really matter. Just know they're artifacts and that they're worth a lot of money. And so Nolan goes ahead and steals one of said eggs. And I will say, credit where it's due. The opening of the film, I did find the opening chase sequence actually pretty well done. I do have to give them credit on that. So there is this chase where Nolan steals one of the eggs, and it's just a big foot chase between him and John. And I will say that sequence, my biggest issue, or one of my biggest issues with this film, is that the opening action scene is the best action scene in the movie. Nothing even comes close to that foot chase, which is a giant issue when you have a 2-hour fucking film. But that whole sequence I thought was actually pretty entertaining and just slapsticky enough, with Nolan showing off why he's an art thief in the sense that he's just very clever. I actually really like that scene. And when he is eventually, of course, captured by John, I actually thought that sequence was well done. So there's a couple scenes in here I went, oh, okay, I'm actually digging this. The first 15 minutes, I'd say, I was kind of like, all right, this isn't bad. But it's once Gal's character is kind of introduced into the film, this really should have been just Ryan Reynolds versus Dwayne Johnson. There really doesn't need to be a third wheel. Like Gal Gadot really is kind of third wheeling it in this, and I think we need to have a conversation about Gal Gadot. And God, I'm gonna be this asshole to say it. So when we look back at her, making her debut performance in the Fast franchises as Giselle back in Fast 5, or in Fast and Furious, pardon me, in the 4th film, she comes across with this screen presence. But obviously those films are, a bit silly, but she does have a screen presence where she's working off of Vin Diesel. And I'll be real, oh God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. She has more chemistry than Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious and in Fast 5 than she has with The Rock here. And that's a really big issue, especially before this film ends up. But one of the things with her character, the Bishop, we don't know a lot about her. We actually know that she is just she's almost like Spectre in human form. She just is able to hack all this tech, and she's kind of like Sato Fair. She's everywhere. But that's all we know about her. We don't know. We never hear her actual name. You don't know, like, where she trained, if she, was a former hacker for someone else, you don't really learn anything about her. So as far as seeing her as a threat, she's just this faceless kind of drone. And that's a big issue, I think. One of the things I'll say as well for her is I was kind of flabbergasted by her action beats. And I don't know if it's her, if it's just a direction, but you've seen the sequence in one of the trailers where she is taking on Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne Johnson at the same time, because they're all trying to steal what essentially is the second out of what you find out are 3 eggs. So that sequence, I was really expecting to be more like, whoa, this is badass. And I was just kind of sitting there unimpressed. And back to the conversation I think that we kind of need to have. What is Gal Gadot as an actress? Like, I understand that she's got the Cleopatra movie coming up, ironically enough, but even Wonder Woman 84 or 1984 or whatever they call it, I think they just call it Wonder Woman 84, but she's not even good in that. And, you know, I've seen other stuff she's been in. I've seen Keeping Up with the Joneses, which was, you know, an action comedy. I saw Criminal. I don't know how good of an actress Gal Gadot actually is. I'm not going to bring the hammer down on her now and be like, oh, her career's over or any of that shit. You know, she's got Death on the Nile, which, you know, we should see at some point. But I don't know, y'all. It's one of these things I just kind of go, you know, I would expect more from her. And I don't know. It kind of feels like maybe I want to say she's just miscast, but that Gal Gadot charm is just very absent here. There's a scene where she's sitting down and she's basically giving them, you know, an out to go, hey, you two are in prison, because they end up in prison together, as, you know, the trailers show. And she kind of goes, hey, you know, if you go ahead and help me out now, I'll give, speaking to Ryan Reynolds Nolan, I'll give you 10% of the money. But if you don't, you're kind of fucked here. And she's supposed to kind of come across, you know, kind of charming, almost like a charming, like kind of like a femme fatale. And it's just, it's similar to Rachel McAdams in Sherlock Holmes, where you just go, that just isn't your arena. And it kind of sucks, because again, like, no ill will towards Gal, but this movie is not a role she should have taken at the end of the day. And some of this plot does require you to go ahead and go, oh man, she's just very charming, and, you know, these men keep underestimating her. And considering what you do end up finding about the Bishop in general, the fact that all of these guys and just people in general are so just whatever whenever she's around, she's never seen as a threat by anyone, which I guess you can make the whole argument of, oh, she's a woman, come on, why would anyone be threatened? But if she's supposed to have this notoriety, which at the end of the film they flat out tell you, I just went, yeah, I don't buy this, and I actually think the movie's kind of full of crap in that sense. But I'm just trying to think here, because to be honest, y'all, I have maybe a page of notes, but they're like double space page of notes. There was really nothing about this that stood out to me. One of the things that I remember, even watching Jungle Cruise, is that some of the action bits, you know, there's that whole sequence with Emily Blunt's character, and she's trying to go ahead and get that book, which is, you know, the map. Kind of similar to this opening scene in this movie. But I even thought later on in the film that the third act battle, as it were, I thought that was actually pretty well done. The third act kind of final confrontation in here, I just went, yeah, I don't really care. There's this mine chase in cars that's kind of reminiscent of Fast and Furious, but I remember watching that and going, man, this must have been a bitch to film, and yet you found a way to make me feel some emotion and actually kind of be invested in the actual chase. At the end of this movie, where this whole chase ends up, and, you know, what it's supposed to mean as far as significance, I just didn't care. And that, at the end of the day, is the big compliment I'm going to give Ryan Reynolds, because while I think Nolan as a character isn't very well written, Ryan Reynolds just finds a way to drag this material up. And maybe that's what it is about Gal Gadot and Dwayne Johnson, is that they're just not good enough. They're not a good enough actor or actress to elevate this material. Ryan Reynolds is one of the best comedians we have working, period. And he just finds a way to make even some lines that when you say them, you go, or you hear him deliver lines, you go, okay, that's worth a chuckle. But you know that line would read so much worse if it wasn't a comedian or a natural comedian delivering the lines. Like, Reynolds does a great job of that. There are multiple points. Like he calls Dwayne Johnson. He talks about how the back of his head looks like a penis or something like that. And I went, it does. That's really funny. Like a lot of things like that where you go, okay, Ryan Reynolds probably improv this, which, not a bad thing, but it's funny. It works. And I don't know. Like for me, I really was bummed out at points because I'm sitting there watching this going, again, these are three of the biggest actors and actresses we have working right now. And why am I not more entertained watching this? Which is a really, really shitty feeling. And the other feeling other big feeling I was having is I'm watching this at home on Netflix. If my partner and I had gone out to see this, thinking, tickets, let's just say $9, $9 for each of us to go, she needs coffee. I get a beer. That's another $10 right there. That's not including other concessions. Like if I paid $60, with everything thrown in to see this in a theater, I'd be pretty pissed off, to be honest. I would have felt like I didn't even get close to my money's worth. And the other thing I will say as I kind of wrap up here, outside of the first action bit and a cameo from a musician that I went, what the fuck, what are you doing here? There's just not a lot about this outside of Ryan Reynolds doing everything he can to make this shit work. There's really nothing for me to recommend, but there will be someone who puts together Ryan Reynolds' best bits from this movie on a YouTube video at some point. Watch that. You don't need to watch this movie. What am I talking about? You don't need to watch this. And the more I think about it, y'all, the more my grade's kind of dropping. Thinking about other stuff, that I kind of want to even talk about. There's really... there is a dance sequence between Dwayne Johnson and Gal Gadot's characters that I thought was kind of cool, kind of in that sexy spy thriller way, but I don't know what it is. Gal and Dwayne just don't look good together, and maybe that's part of it. You just don't get that. You don't get that vibe you're supposed to get from an adventure film like this. It just never, or a spy thriller like this. It just doesn't come across like that. So I don't know. It's just. I just felt very bleh by the time I was done watching this. And I watched this maybe 4 or 5 hours ago, and I'm already forgetting it, which is not, the hallmark of a great film. So, God, where do I want to land on this? I'm going to give this, damn. I'm going to give it a D+, and here's why. There is something they pull at the end of the movie that my partner and I looked at each other and went, oh, you've got to be kidding me. It treats it like a twist. And I just went, no, not, I'm not accepting that. And there is something involving, oh, God, okay, I won't give it away because I'm going to be kind, but there's something involving money at the end that is such a, okay, this is on you for being this stupid sort of moment that I went, yeah, anything more would be a spoiler. But yeah, this isn't good. And it does set up for a sequel, but to be honest, the big part of me was just like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see any more of that. I stand by it. It should have been Ryan Reynolds versus Dwayne Johnson. I think if you do that, I think you get a better film because you don't have a third character you don't have to, pretend to pay attention to. Plus, Dwayne Johnson versus Ryan Reynolds, you can sell that on a fucking movie poster. It didn't need Gal. And yeah, so D+, sorry. I mean, there's so much better stuff to watch on Netflix. Given the star power in this movie, this should have been better. There's really no excuse for this to be less than at least a good film. Jungle Cruise should not be better than Red Notice, and yet it is. So, yeah, I mean, don't know what to tell you. Sorry, it's not good. But Red Notice, have you seen it? What did you think of it if you did? I'm very curious to hear people's thoughts on this, because some people I know were like, oh, this is kind of fun. And I'm sitting there watching it going, really? This is fun to you? But what did you think? Let us know in the comments. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter at jhunterrealpineapple. You can follow Scott on Twitter at Nearman1st. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on SoundCloud, Apple, and Google podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, to name a few other spots at The Real Pineapple. And don't forget to like both our Facebook pages at, I'm not calling it that new dumb name that they want you to call it, but you can find us on there at The Real Pineapple and Real Pineapple Games. You can also find yours truly on Twitch at twitch.tv/jhunterrealpineapple. And yeah, everyone, thank you so much for listening. We're going to have reviews up this week for Ghostbusters Afterlife. I am so excited to watch that, as well as Dune and Eternals, and what else? And Ron's Gone Wrong. Yeah, I've got quite a few reviews coming on the pipeline, and I'm going to have a review for The Shrink, the first couple episodes of The Shrink Next Door, which I'm really excited to see what that's about. But everyone, thank you so much for listening. Take care of each other. Wear your mask. Get your COVID shot if you haven't yet. And again, thank you for the support, and we will talk to you soon.